At the beginning of 2014, 2 years after the passing of my late grandfather, my parents decided to sell the ancestral house for the reason that my father didn't enjoy living in my mother's hometown. However, my grandmother strongly disagreed because the reason was unreasonable and they chose to sell the house and rent elsewhere. But at that time, my mother complied with my father's request. They agreed to sell the house at a relatively cheap price because it needed a lot of renovations, even though the house documents were complete and newly made. Make a long story short, my family moved to a house quite far from my previous village. House looked very comfortable, close to rice fields and near a mountain. People often referred to the house as Red House because the exterior was painted entirely in red chili color. A few months after we moved into the house, my parents often left me alone because they had to work. But luckily, my neighbors were kind and caring. They often asked about my well-being or gave me permission to stay temporarily at their house while my parents were not home. They would also ask about the condition of my house, like, "Have there been any strange incidents while living there?" I would reply, "No, never." But I was confused why my neighbors kept asking the same question, as if they knew something odd was happening in the house. I would also ask, "Why do you keep asking about strange things in the house? Is there something going on?" They never answered. One day, during sunset, my mother screamed, "There's a snake! There's a snake!" I was startled and ran outside to ask for help from my neighbors. "Where is the snake, Mom?" My mother replied, "In the prayer room near the bathroom." The neighbors rushed to help us, and we saw 2 black snakes that were very agile. My neighbors started to look suspicious and worried. We didn't have the same thoughts as them. We thought that because our house was close to the rice fields, the snakes might have come from there. Not long after the snake incident, strange things started to occur in the house. The first incident I experienced was on a Saturday. The next day was a school holiday. I intended to stay up all night and sleep in front of the TV. The layout of the room was like this. All the doors inside the house were open. I was lying down, watching TV until late at night. The clock showed 11 p.m., and I started to feel restless and scared because I remembered the rumors from the neighbors that the house was haunted. But I ignored my fear, as I was determined to stay up until dawn. Suddenly, at 11:30 p.m., I heard a strange knocking sound coming from my kitchen. First, I thought it was a mouse. After 30 minutes, the sound didn't stop. I spontaneously said, "Hush, hush," in an attempt to scare away the animal, but the sound wouldn't stop. Track, track, track. I was annoyed with the sound. I listened carefully to what sound it was, because if I went to the kitchen, I would already be scared. Finally, I realized that the sound was like metal meeting glass, simply like the sound of a knife hitting glass. And I just realized that my dining table was made of glass. When I started to realize that it was a sound that couldn't possibly come from an animal, I tried to get up and get ready to go to my parents' room. As I got up, the sound became louder, like someone who was angry. Track, 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 track. I tried to go back to sleep, and the sound became calm again. Track, track, track. My body started to feel weak and couldn't move. I wanted to cry but couldn't. I wanted to scream but couldn't. I recited the verses of the Holy Quran that I had memorized, and when I recited the Ayatul Kursi for the 3rd time, I gathered the courage to get up and run towards my parents' room. As a result, the sound became louder and sounded angrier. I jumped over my parents' bodies until my father woke up. My father was annoyed and asked me, "What's wrong? Is it not polite to step on someone's head?" Couldn't answer. I could only hide under my mother's blanket. Then my father woke up and heard the strange sound. Strangely, the sound returned to normal with a calm tempo. When my father searched for the source of the sound and couldn't find it, finally the kitchen door was closed, and the sound disappeared. That was the first time I believed that this house was haunted. The next day I told my mother about it, but she dismissed my fear. I knew that my mother didn't want me to worry, and didn't want to hear me suddenly ask to move out of the house because of what happened last night. The second incident happened a month after the first strange incident. My mother fell ill and couldn't move or walk because of dengue fever, so she was admitted to the nearest hospital. I was alone at home because my father had to work and take care of my mother. One day, the electricity in my village went out from afternoon until night. I was too engrossed in using my laptop for Facebook that I forgot about the time. When the Maghrib call to prayer sounded, my neighbor said, "Dear, come to my house first. Don't stay alone at home, bring your phone and laptop, I'm afraid they might get stolen." So I hurriedly went to her house, but I was foolish. Forgot to lock the back storage room door. I told my neighbor, "I forgot to lock the storage room door. Can someone accompany me to go home?" But no one dared to. I was very restless, so finally at 8 p.m. I forced myself to go home alone, but my neighbor stopped me. Finally, her 2 children agreed to accompany me. When I was in front of the entrance door, for some reason, the door couldn't be opened, so we had to enter through the back storage room door. Uni accompanied me inside while her older sister waited outside. When I opened the door and took 2 steps inside, suddenly, there was no wind, no thunder. The door just closed as if someone was angry and closed it. At first, I thought maybe Uni's older sister was playing a prank on us. She swore that she didn't close the door. Without thinking too much, I quickly went out, locked all the doors, and suddenly the front entrance door could be open. The third incident was not only experienced by me, but also by my parents. My father heard someone taking a shower in the middle of the night, and my mother heard activity in the kitchen late at night. My mother became restless, so she asked for help from an Islamic scholar to perform a ruqyah, Islamic exorcism, on the house. The house was recited with verses from the Quran and sprinkled with salt in every corner. That night, I had a dream that I had died and there were many people in the house, especially children. The dominant figure among all the creatures in the house was a tall black figure in the storage room, and there was a woman with long hair wearing a white dress near the dining table. Came out of the bathroom and then went towards the living room, TV room, out through the entrance door. I saw my parents having fun, but they didn't notice or look at me. Then I walked towards door B near the dining table, and as I approached the door, a woman with long hair and a white dress appeared. She had a beautiful and graceful face, but as I got closer, everything changed and became eerie and tense. The woman transformed into a vengeful ghost and screamed at me. From there, I woke up and immediately sought refuge in seeking forgiveness from Allah. I told my mother about my dream, and she told the Islamic scholar who performed the ruqyah on our house. Finally, the scholar advised my mother to leave the house as soon as possible. I didn't know the exact reason why he suggested that we move quickly, but I heard rumors from the neighbors that the previous owner of the house had performed black magic, become wealthy, and the creatures in the house demanded sacrifices as payment. They said that these creatures had been living in the house for a much longer time. They don't like having new residents settling in that house. That's why they disturb us. Because we're worried that worse things might happen, we decided to move out of that house. The latest news I heard from the neighbors after we moved out is that one family immediately moved into that house, and not long after, one of their members died in that house. After that, no one dared to live in the red villa until now. Actually, there are many incidents that we experienced, but the incidents I mentioned above are the ones that are deeply ingrained in my memory. The message is, before deciding to live in a house previously owned by someone else, better to find out the background of the house first. And don't forget to always remember Allah and keep worshipping Him.